Miami Dolphins. The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Shula, the Dolphins touchdown. Throwing deep upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown! Looking deep, he's got it there! Touchdown! The run from Shula, Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep! He's got it for a touchdown! He's in! Touchdown! Tagovailoa running. He's got for it, fires for the end zone. Touchdown! Beautiful day to be a Dolphins fan. 1, 2, 3, 3. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one as Vic Fangio, the introductory press conference is starting. I will hop into it in like a minute, give people time to come in. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about after the press conference, so buckle up. He's being introduced now. I'm going to it started about 4 minutes ago, so we're gonna start it now. We're gonna get right into it, so all of y'all can see exactly what's going down. So let's hop right into it. Let's not waste any time. Vic Fangio is meeting with the media right now, so let's hop into it.
And couldn't be happy. Couldn't be any happier really for the organization and really a guy that takes professional football serious, but also the obligation to continue to evolve and get better. And you don't have a sustaining career for
everyone go
longer than I've
Finn
been
Hubble
alive.
follow
really.
He's close to 1,000 followers. That's
Vic
my boy right there.
That
been doing some work with him for a while.
Fearless,
go give him a follow.
Chase of continuing to evolve and get better and be your best version of yourself as you age with grace. So without further ado, Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins.
Oh yeah, baby. Bring him up, baby. Look at that. What a stud. What a stud.
Well, thank you to Mike for that intro, and thank you for being here today. It's a holiday. Sure, some of you weren't happy to have to be here.
Brother, but, I'm happier than a pig, and you know what?
Pontificate up here. I'll just open it up to questions.
Vic, you were first welcome to Miami. You were a DC who was in high demand. A lot of teams that were looking into potentially bringing you in. What made Miami the right fit and the right opportunity for you after a year off?
Well, I think the Dolphins have a good thing going here. I like the Mike and his staff that he already has in place here.
Oh yeah, big Vic energy, baby.
Good components to the coaching staff led by Mike that made it intriguing to join that. I think there's a good nucleus of players here, and the lure of South Florida.
Got a boy. Yeah.
Most important ways
the Boca Vista.
to maximize the players' talent.
Well, I've always believed you just try and improve every player as an individual, and then hopefully you do that well enough to where their position group improves, and if their position group improves, then the defense has improved. So you really do it from the ground up, and there's a lot of good young players here that I think have room to grow, and hopefully myself and the staff will get that done.
Connection with Mike, when did you guys meet and develop a relationship where you'd be
really didn't have much of a relationship with Mike. Obviously we have some mutual friends, but as far as Mike and I having a relationship worth mentioning prior to this, would be misleading. Obviously I knew of him, he knew of me. We've had 2-3 minute casual conversations, maybe at a combine or somewhere else, but no major connection, relationship prior to this.
Like having said that,
Shows how much the agent
from the little
played.
that you've spoken to him now,
What's that?
Having said that, from the little that you've been with him now, what's your first impressions of a guy like that?
Yeah, well, it's been very little because I got here last Tuesday and Mike was on vacation. So today's the first day we're in here together. Now, we did some Zoom interviews together from where he was last week, but everything I thought, he's energetic, genuine, obviously got a good football mind, puts good offensive football out there, and hopefully we can complement that.
You're damn right you will, Vicky. You're damn right you will, Vic.
NFL for most of the year anyway. But you did spend quite a bit of time studying games. In the time that you were studying games, what could you take away from what you saw of the Dolphins defense? What stood out to you?
Well, I didn't study the Dolphins defense per se that much. Basically what I did with all my time, I kind of treated it like a college professor on a sabbatical and was watching a lot of NFL tape more from a situational standpoint rather than studying a team per se. So I never actually studied the Dolphins in its entirety. Now, obviously their games would come across these situational studies that I was doing. And I think there's some good young talent there. Obviously, just from 2 years ago in the draft with Phillips and Holland, and those are two really good players that I really liked in the draft. Bradley Chubb is here, who obviously I know about, and several other guys. Christian Wilkins is here, who another guy I liked in the draft, who, Christian's greatest honor is the Bill Campbell Award Trophy, which is the academic Heisman. And Bill Campbell was a good friend of mine. So
wow.
When I see him, I always think of that.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
But there's a good nucleus of players.
That is a very interesting point.
Great answer schematically. I'd be stretching it.
You've got a ton of defensive coordinator experience. You now go into this tenure with previous head coaching experience. How will that transform who you are in this state as a DC?
Wow, that's a very interesting point.
My experience as the head coach won't change too much because I still ran the defense when I was in Denver. So I just continued on that path. Obviously, I had more on my plate that I was responsible for. But I've done this job enough now that I don't see it being a major factor.
Vic, how important was it to get Renaldo to come from LA, and how did you convince him to leave the DC job to work under you?
What was the first part of the question?
I guess just how important.
Yeah, it's important. First and foremost, Renaldo's a good coach. Really a talented coach that's got a bright future in the NFL. He worked with us for 2 years in Denver. So, his familiarity with me and the system and what we do was important to me. But regardless of that, just his ability to be a great coach is what attracted
former
me
Dolphin
to him.
player, too.
How did you convince him to leave?
I'll let him answer that for you.
How do you like to go about deciding which players should play and which players should play a lot? Maybe some aren't going to play a lot. How do you go about that?
Is this a no egg monogamy testing, Joe Shad?
Starts in training camp. I could say OTAs, but in OTAs were
no egg monogamy's ears just went whoop.
It's a process that really the players are in charge of. Now, there's some that you'd like to play every play. Sometimes that's not possible from a exertion standpoint. But a lot of the great players that I've been around, they never leave the field very often. I know the heat here is a different element, an animal to deal with. But, there'll be plenty of packages available for guys to get playing time. But who plays and how much is really up to the players.
Your time off, did you come up with anything new that you would like to try out there on the field?
Yeah, there's a few things that I came up with that I'm anxious to try. We'll try them in OTAs at some point and in training camp. And, as a good fit
Let's
for
go.
the other things we do.
Let's
But what's
go.
going to be most important is tailoring what we do to our players and to the opponent that we're playing for that week. So, there may be things that we did at previous stops that we won't do much here because it doesn't fit our players, and vice versa. We might do something a lot that we didn't do other places because it's a better fit for our players. So, and sometimes it's a better, you might think it would be great to do something because it fits a certain player really good, but you really have to think about how it fits all 11 and what's the best way to stop somebody from scoring too many points.
Your time with him in Denver, your thoughts on Bradley Chubb, and what's the key to unlocking the best of him here in Miami?
Well, the 3 years, Bradley and I talked about this the other day when he was in here. The 3 years I was with him in Denver, he was the victim of some injuries. I believe he got hurt in the 4th game the first year I was there and was out for the season. Came back the second year. And it took him about 4 or 5 games to get into a groove coming off the injury. And then he had a good season that year. And then he really basically missed, it doesn't say it statistically, but he missed most of my last year there because he had an ankle injury that kept him out. And when he came back, he wasn't himself, still recovering from he had 2 ankle injuries. So I'm anxious to get him rolling, keep him healthy, and see the Bradley Chubb that we all know he's capable of being.
Based on what you know about Bradley and what you liked about Jalen Phillips entering the draft a couple of years ago, what potential do those two have as a pass rushing duo here?
They have great potential. But, potential, we got to see it. Talking about it is easy. Projecting it is easy, but we got to see it. And I'm confident knowing those two guys' work ethic that they'll do everything they can to put a good product out there on the field from the both of them. But they both have the tools, both have the makeup to be really good players on the edges for us.
How do you describe your defensive philosophy? We've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about things you do, but how do you have any way to
not a buzzword if that's what you're looking for. We're in charge of not letting the other team score.
Yep.
And we will do anything and everything to do that. I've been places in the past where we pressured a lot. I've been places where we didn't pressure very much. You got to fit the scheme to the players that you have while also factoring in the opponents that you're playing. So hopefully we'll be a team that will keep the points down, make it hard for teams to score a lot of points, and put our offense in position.
Let's go.
To score points for us.
Let's go.
So, I'm not a buzzword guy as far as that goes, other than we want to play good defense. And what's good defense? Keep them out of the end zone.
Yeah.
Going off of that, what is your general philosophy when it comes to blitzing specifically?
As needed and when I want to. Versus having to.
Oh.
If you have to,
that's
not a great feeling.
Ooh.
You want to do it when you want to on your terms.
Ooh.
Now, having said that, I can't tell you what that means from a percentage standpoint.
Mike mentioned you've been doing this longer than he's been alive. You see these young guys, young head coaches, the offensive philosophy is changing. How do you mix with that? And do you think he'll benefit from having a guy who's been around like you that has seen it all?
Yeah, the game's evolving. Since I got in the league, the evolution of the game has just continued. And I think we saw it firsthand in the Super Bowl. I guess it was 8 days ago. Two great quarterbacks, 2 great offenses, and they had their way with the.
What I'm having an orgasm over? I'll tell you. Our last scheme, we had to blitz. For it to be effective, we had to blitz. We had to use a cover 0. And, listen to what he said, the exact opposite.
We've got to find a way to slow that down. And the only way you do that is to evolve your philosophy, what you're teaching, what you're playing to fit stopping what they're doing now, to line up and play what you did 10, 15 years ago, although you're still doing some of that, you have to adapt it to today's NFL game. And, you know, when there's years ago, you know, every team had a fullback. Now hardly any teams have a fullback.
Except us.
And the fullback's been replaced by a third wide receiver or a second tight end who's like a third wide receiver. That in and of itself has changed the game. But teams are still running the ball. You know, everybody likes to say it's a pass happy league, but percentage wise, from 40 years ago to now, the runs have decreased only about 4%. And Chris Greer told me, because he's on the competition committee, they had a graphic last week in a meeting. This is the most runs in the NFL this past year in the last 25 years.
Wow.
So you still have to be able to stop the run.
Yeah.
Play physical.
Yeah.
Vic, you mentioned the sabbatical that you took. Can you give us a little bit more details of maybe what that looked like week to week for you, watching those situational drills?
Well, I set up shop. I lived in
this man had the back
Destin,
cave.
Florida, up on the Panhandle, and I had a computer that I was able to VPN into, and it was just like if I was in an office, an NFL office. I had exposure to everything that any NFL coach had at that time, and wherever I went, I would tune in and do my, not every day, but most every day, spend a few hours watching tape and doing these different types of studies like third down, red zone, formational studies, you know, against offensive personnel. And so I did that a lot up there. I traveled out of there. I'd go back east and fly into Philadelphia and either drive 2 hours north and see my mother or 2 hours south and see my kids. I've spent some time in San Francisco, but no matter where I was doing that. Just doing it on a kitchen table. Sometimes I went into a library and did it.
Look at this guy going to libraries in 2020.
I just did that all year. Played some golf too. So it was an interesting year. One that I would recommend for anybody to do at some point, but in this business, you can't do it too often.
Yeah.
What was the desire to get back in? Some may have just enjoyed life. You wanted to get back in coaching. Why?
Yeah, because that's who I am. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. I still have a lot of coaching left in me.
Let's go. Let's go.
And
woo!
You know, it's not like I'm thinking about retirement or anything. Somebody asks, how much longer are you going to do this? I don't know. It might be 10 years if they'll have me here for 10
Let's
years.
go. We will. Let's go.
It's just who I am, what I do, what I enjoy doing. Like the competition. I like teaching players. I like to see players improve as individuals. And
he's a teacher, baby. I
putting
love
something together is challenging and fulfilling.
Vic, you mentioned teaching.
We got to get this man a ring.
Guy you mentioned earlier was Javon Holland. I know you've had a lot of success with safeties.
Yep.
What do you think you could maybe teach him to elevate his game?
Ask him about Brandon
I
Jones,
haven't studied him
Cameron.
enough
Why are
since
you
he's
watching
got
about
in the
Holland?
NFL as far as what can I teach him, but I do know I really liked him the year he came out in the draft. I like his physical ability, his combination of size, speed, quickness. He's got good instincts. I think he's smart from a football standpoint. And you're right. We've had some good luck with safeties over the years.
Yep.
In the last few stops.
You got to ask him about
And
Brandon
I'm
Jones, though.
hopeful and confident that he can be one of the top safeties in the league.
Ooh,
let's fitting your scheme to the players with your relationship with Chris Greer. How much input will you have
All right,
on
smash that like button.
bringing in certain players with all the relationships?
Subscribe if
you
you're
have
new. Let's
that you think
go.
will fit here?
Well, we haven't sat down and said how much I will, but you can rest assured if there's somebody I feel strong about, I'll be in and out of his offense.
Let's go.
Pestering him pretty strongly.
Let's go.
How close is this defense to being Super Bowl caliber?
Oh, I don't
Perkins.
know. Can we get one practice on the field? Jeez.
Yeah, I love
A week, about a week.
Yeah.
Your order of business this week.
Well, a lot of it's been spent on filling up the staff, you know, and everything that's involved with that, you know, which is a multitude of phone calls, Zoom interviews, talking to a lot of people. Did one day of a little house hunting, and up to this moment, I'm looking at one that's way too more than I wanted to spend. Jeez. But it's been, I'll tell you what it is too. That last week, it's one of those where you're super, super busy. But if you came in my office and, hey, show me what you got done today, I really couldn't show you much, because you're doing all the busy work, not handwriting busy work, but the leg work to fulfill your staff.
So if you've had conversations with them, what are your early impressions of Austin Clark, Anthony Campanelli, and Sam Madison?
Great. They were on vacation last week, although I did spend some time with Austin and Anthony. We watched some tape together, met Sam for a little bit. But by all reports and everything I know, they're great coaches, and that's why Mike kept them on. And I'm looking forward to working with them.
You mentioned, obviously, you spent time, it's been reported, with Philadelphia during the Super Bowl period. What did you learn, or what did you maybe help in that period that you think can provide insight with?
I wasn't there often. Like I had said earlier, I would fly into Philadelphia and either end up going north a little bit or south a little bit to see family. And, I'd stop in and see them because Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni are friends of mine, and I'd spend some time there. But, and then when they got in the playoffs, and I helped them prepare for the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, but I was helping the offense, not the defense. I was giving them a perspective for the offensive coaches, and it was a great experience. They got a great organization.
And that offense is lighting it up.
Jeffrey Lurie's a great owner. Howie does a great job as the GM. Nick Sirianni's a great coach, and they really have a great staff up there. And what little I was around them, I enjoyed it.
Let's go.
Background with the Dolphins at all before this?
No. Other than some of you are old enough to remember when the Dolphins was in the AFC East when it was a 5-team division.
With the Colts?
And I was with the Colts a couple of years. Dan Marino and I talked about one of those games just last week. Obviously when you think about the Dolphins, you think about Don Shula, Dan Marino, the heyday in the 70s, the 17-0 season. I think the Dolphins are one of those franchises that the NFL is a better league when the Dolphins are relevant and in the hunt, and hopefully we can get it back to that.
Let's go, Vicky.
All right.
Let's go, Vic.
Welcome.
Oh, Vic, why do you gotta get me all happy in my giblies with that stuff? I mean, there is a lot to unpack there. I mean, let's start off with, him again reiterating that, he got some new coverages he wants to try. He's got some new looks he wants to try. Now, people are wondering, why was I losing my mind with what he said about blitzing? Listen to what he said. When we want to, when I want to, not because we have to. And I feel like that was slightly, that was a slight at our past defensive regime. That's what I feel like that was. That to me was a slight, because he was looking at it as like, you guys had to blitz for your defense to be effective and to work and click on all cylinders. We had to blitz. We needed to blend in the cover zero. And he, with politely saying it, he basically said, that's a gimmick. That ain't gonna, you can only do that for so long. And man, he seems super, 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 super impressed with Javon Holland and Jalen Phillips. Javon Holland especially. Looks like he can't wait to get his defensive paws on him and continue to mold the player into something great. Now, what he molds him into, man, it remains to be seen. But I'm telling you right now, what a fantastic, fantastic hire. And, it's just been one thing after another. Now we continue to wait to see if Sean Desai or someone to that effect is going to come over. But one of the things that did happen earlier today, before this press conference even started popping, and you saw him mentioned here, it was reported a couple hours ago that but here you can see the Adam Schefter report at 10:28 a.m. So just over 3 hours ago. Chargers defensive coordinator Renaldo Hill is leaving LA to reunite with Miami defensive coordinator Vic Fangio and will become the Dolphins defensive pass game coordinator per source. Hill was Fangio's top target, and out of respect to his former boss, Chargers Brandon Staley, allowed his defensive coordinator to leave LA for Miami. Do you realize what this man did right now? This man just poached a defensive coordinator and got him to take a demotion. Think about this for a sec. This man just got a guy to take a demotion. Renaldo Hill is going from defensive coordinator to defensive pass game coordinator. Like that, unbelievable. Look at Flores could never. We always go back to this. Flores could never. And this is the ripple effect of Fangio. This is why I got a little bent out of shape when I saw Barry Jackson say, well, I don't understand why everyone's making a big deal out of him. How many defensive coordinators are going to get other defensive coordinators to take a demotion to come and work for them? Do you realize what kind of power play that is? You know, join the Patreon, patreon.com/Phinside the NFL. You not only get insider information like you do if you're a YouTube channel member, but you also get 3 Takes Thursday, a video I drop every Thursday exclusive for Patreons, 3 Takes. And one of my takes, and we turned it into a show with Neil Driscoll. We talked about Neil Driscoll, but it was from 3 Takes Thursday. Vic Fangio is the most powerful coordinator in the NFL. It's not even close. Like, it's not even close. I want people to sit back and realize we have the most powerful coordinator in the NFL. Think about that for a second right now. And I'm going to go back to what I said just a few days ago. I'm going to reiterate it now that we've added Renaldo Hill. Mike McDaniel is quietly putting together, if not one of, then the best staffs in the NFL. Let's put it this way. Vic Fangio is the highest paid defensive coordinator, right? Word came out today that Jonathan Gannon turned down head coach money in Philadelphia and took less to go to Arizona to be a head coach. Well, we got Darrell Bevell turning down promotions. We got guys taking demotions to come here. Do you realize this? And if we don't get Sean Desai, which I do think that's still in play for people wondering, you've got your successor already in the building right now, Renaldo Hill. And let's go back to this. Renaldo Hill was part of that defense that shut our explosive offense down with Brandon Staley with the Chargers. Another guy who's going to teach Tua and McDaniel the cheat codes to this defense, which a third of the NFL currently runs. 11 teams run a form of this defense. This is the defense that highlights Tua's weaknesses. This is the defense that Tua's really struggled the most against since he was a rookie when he faced the Rams led by Staley and the Broncos led by Fangio in 2020. Struggled against it this year when he saw it again. Unbelievable right now. We have got a defensive coordinator that is doing things our head coach never did. I mean, we could sit here and say Mike McDaniel is doing things Flores never did, and that's true. Freaking Vic Fangio is doing things as a coordinator that Flores couldn't do as a head coach, and there's still people in our fan base that will go to bat for Brian Flores. They still will not admit, sure, he was a great defensive mind, but overall as a coach, he was not a great coach. You know why he wasn't a great coach here? Because part of being a great coach is building, maintaining, cultivating, and utilizing your NFL relationships. He did zero of that. That is a massive part of being a coach. They had no tie beyond an agent, McDaniel and Fangio. And look at what now it's turning into. I want you to think about the development that is awaiting some of these players we've already seen that we know have a high ceiling. Listen to Fangio get giddy talking about Christian Wilkins. Is Christian Wilkins about to take another leap in his game? I'm sitting here looking at Fangio. I'm thinking Tua's going to take a leap in his game as a quarterback. McDaniel's going to take a leap as a head coach. Christian Wilkins is going to take a leap. Bradley Chubb's going to get back to the Pro Bowler we wanted. Jalen Phillips is going to take a leap. Javon Holland's going to take a leap. Zach Seiler's probably going to take a leap. Holy Jesus. Shout out to Griffin Gaming. He says, I'm just going to assume Rex Ryan is Denver's DC next year in the Miami will decimate the Broncos. Expect Tua to pop off that game to directly silence two of his biggest critics. Fins up. I agree, Griffin. I agree. And I hope Sean decides on the staff so they're a little extra bitter and they want to lay it into the Denver Broncos next year. And look at what the coach mentioned. Look at what Vic mentioned. Right? What did he mention? The lure of South Florida. Right? Not only are we turning into a team with a lot of promise, but we also have that South Floridian allure is not going anywhere. And it played a factor. And I love it, man. I mean, this hire is just turning out like we've went from a home run to like easily turning into a grand slam to we might have to go to a different sport. You know, how many points can I get on a cricket, on one of those cricket hits? You know, we might be talking about a cricket hit here, you know? So, and, don't forget, listen, if you want to celebrate Vic Fangio, guys, Phinside the NFL.com/shop. Got that big Vic energy, baby. We got that big Vic energy. We got the T popping off right there. You see it. T popping off. Right? And we got stickers. We got mugs. It's popping right now. Go check it out. We got that Big Vic energy. We got the hoodie. You want to go grab a hoodie? Go grab that hoodie. Big Vic energy. Shout out. Phinside the NFL.com/shop. Go check it out. Get that Big Vic energy rolling right through you, baby. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it, man. Unbelievable stuff. Man, I had a fantastic birthday this weekend. I do want to take the time out just before we keep going here. I want to thank a lot of y'all for your donations, for your well wishes. It was a fantastic birthday. Shout out to the wife. She held it down. So it was a absolutely fantastic birthday. Kids got me a Funko Pop of Tua and stuff. So good stuff there, man. So I appreciate everyone for the well wishes, for the donations, and just thinking on me. I saw all y'all on Twitter hit me up, the DMs, on the timeline. Then I got the text, the phone calls, and also the live chat comments when we went live on Saturday, and the comments after the show was live. So I want to thank each and every one of you who took the time out of your day to wish me a happy birthday. Thank you very much. It was a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic birthday, and you guys helped make it a great one. So thank you very much, guys. Let's keep it rolling, shall we? We got a couple other things I want to talk about here, and let's start off with ESPN.com. If you did not see what ESPN.com's feeling the Vic Fangio hire, sure seems like it. Sure seems like they are. Why do I say that? Because guess what? They're out here picking us. Seth Walder on ESPN.com. He picks for the early Super Bowl next year the Dolphins over the Eagles. When the Dolphins had Tua Tagovailoa on the field this season, they generated 0.13 expected points added per play, slightly better than the Bills did with Josh Allen on the field at 0.12. Now they add Vic Fangio to fix a defense that already has some star power on it. Sign me up. ESPN has been feeling the Dolphins lately. It's kind of weird. You know, Tua was a seventh ranked quarterback. They also, on their early rankings heading into next season, I believe they had us number 8, the Dolphins. So they had us top 10. They had 2 on the cusp of top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And now one of their analysts are picking us to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, you know, this is strange. You know, you ever seen that Toy Story? Strange things are happening when Woody doesn't know what's going on and Buzz is taking over his life. You know, all of a sudden, quarterbacks being highly touted and we're seen as potential Super Bowl favorites. Wow. Didn't see this one coming this early in the offseason. And this is before free agency. This is before the draft. If that doesn't get you excited, we're starting to get our respect. But here's the thing about when you start getting the respect. You got to keep it. And the only way we can keep that is if we win. You know, listen, if we're getting ranked in the top 10, if our quarterback's getting ranked on the cusp of the top 5, if we're getting some of those people over at ESPN are picking us to win the Super Bowl, you know, this gets the feeling that the expectation is much more than one playoff win. And the expectation is to make some real damage. And I'm going to tell you this right now, by me reading it, by all of you reading it, what do you think if we're reading this stuff February 20th, where do you think our expectations are going to be come June, July, August? Think about that. When this roster is more put together, when the coaching staff is finalized in place, what do you think our expectations are going to be right now? Then, if you see what they are turning into right now. My God. For Fangio and McDaniels, for the sake of their sanity, I hope they deliver because the pressure is going to be on. The expectations are going to be realer than they ever were under man. I'm going to go on a limb here. Guys, I want all the people who have been around since Jay Fiedler and all the people who've been around since Marino to sit back and think about this for a sec. Are we about to enter an offseason with the biggest expectations since we had a complete roster and Ricky Williams minus the quarterback? Or are these expectations as big as when we had Dan Marino and that roster in the 90s? I want the chat to let me know. Are these expectations as big as when we had those complete defenses and those rosters with Ricky? Or are these expectations as big as when Marino was around? Let me know in the comment section because it's one of the two. And either one. So let me know. Marino expectations or Ricky expectations? Let me know. Let me know in the comment section. What is this to you? Are these Ricky expectations or are these Marino expectations? Because if they're Marino expectations, that's real talk right there. As big as Marino was around. Yep. Been a fan since the undefeated Fins reason. Never been so hype. Wow. Marino. 13. I would say Marino. Not Marino expectations, says Fife Dog. I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, I think this is we're getting it. And what I mean by Marino expectations, okay, let me lay that out. Because I think some of y'all know what I get. But for those who don't understand. What I'm talking about is when Dan Marino was here, we were expected to compete every year. We were an AFC championship contender every year. We're expected to compete if everyone is healthy for the Super Bowl. That's what I'm talking about, right? Ricky expectations were more like, man, this team can make a run if the quarterback gets it right. But with Marino expectations, you've got everything right, including the quarterback. So, it's and you kind of heard Vic Fangio allude to it when he talked about how the NFL is better when the Dolphins, are making a run or are relevant. And he brought up Shula, and he brought up Marino, and he brought up the 80s, brought up the 70s, and you think about the heyday. Other than the Detroit Lions, who deserves a heyday more than Dolphin fans right now? Man, we've been through it all. We've been through it all. And, it's just crazy for me to look at what they were as a kid to now that I've turned 38 and to see where they were. It's nice to see the expectations getting back there a little bit, man. But, it's just really sad for me through my 20s and, my late teens. Well, let's say my 20s. My 20s, my mid to late 20s, and this team has been a wash. And I remember what they were as a young kid watching. And I know a lot of you have only been around since Pennington or have only been around since Fiedler. Y'all deserve to see what we were and what this franchise meant to the league and meant to us as fans. When every year you opened, at the starting of the season, back then, you opened the paper or you logged up on your dial-up internet and you always saw the Dolphins favored. You always saw the Dolphins in the conversation. Now, I know some of y'all have felt that when LeBron came over with the Heat, but I'm telling you, football is a different feeling. There's only 17 games a season. There's less, but it means so much more because it's so much harder. And when your team's one of the most respected out of the bunch, it's such a hard sport to win. It's a feeling, man. That's why it's a feeling with hockey, too, because hockey, the Stanley Cup to me is the hardest trophy to win in sports. And I think football's right there. So it's just a different feeling than an NBA championship or a World Series. Because I know the Marlins have had those. It's a different feeling. I felt that with the Blue Jays. I felt the NBA championship. It's a different feeling, man. It's a different feeling, and y'all deserve it. And I really hope this regime brings it. I really do, because I've never felt that. But I'll tell you this much. It felt different when the Dolphins would go to the AFC Championship as opposed to when I watched the Raptors, whether with Carter or with Kawhi, go to the NBA Eastern Conference Finals, right? When we lost to Iverson with Carter, and then when we won with Kawhi, and then went to face the Warriors. Just a different vibe, ALCS, back-to-back years, and those were stacked teams in 92, 93. Like, the Blue Jays were like the Yankees back then. Go look at our payrolls and go look at our teams. We're talking about like Dave Winfield, Joe Carter, Paul Molitor. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking like stacked teams, man. We would upgrade, 92 went on, got Jimmy Key, and we'd go in 93. I think 93 we went on, got David Cohn. Like, just stupid stacked stuff. And nothing felt the same as either watching my Penguins go to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Bills and Marino go to the AFC Championship. Knight says 1 Dolphin Super Bowl, 2 my 2024 wedding. Attaboy, Knight. Priorities. Dubs MC, reason, what is the barrier of entry between Flo's, Boyer's defense and Fangio's defense? Is there a mountain to climb for our players to transition? No, I don't think so, except there's going to be a little bit more. Obviously, there's going to be more zone principles. I don't think it's, and remember, we're changing gap techniques too, right? We're going to like a 1.5 gap, which is trying to get the best of both worlds of a 1 gap and a 2 gap. So that might be a slight learning curve for a guy like Raekwon Davis. You know what I mean? I could see that being because, he's already not a great penetrator at this stage of his career. So that might be an interesting little transition for a player like Raekwon Davis. Obviously, we talked about because of the coverage skills required on the back end. Be interesting to see how Brandon Jones transitions. But yeah, like it's going to be some zone, and that might be good for a guy like Xavier Howard, right? Like maybe his body isn't up to the standards it needs to be in those heavy man zone, right? Schemes. Sorry, in those heavy man schemes. Sorry, zone maybe might be better for his bodies and his for his body. It seems like he's had a groin injury for back-to-back years. Maybe it'll be better for that, right? Not traveling as much. So, I don't see a huge transitional period here. Right off the rip, who gets the axe, in my opinion? I've been told Jerome Baker's not safe. And then I've started to read it recently, which is crazy to me. Who gets the axe? On defense? That's a good question. Let me see. Did I put anyone? Because I have a show coming out this week that kind of talks about this a little bit here. Noah Monogamy. There you go. Noah Monogamy. Done. Now, he might not get the axe because they might use him on special teams. But Noah would be the guy that I get because you actually save money if you cut Noah. Noah I would get. Crossen I would keep because you can keep him on special teams. But Noah Monogamy would be the first one to grab the axe off of his head as soon as I walked in the room. Basically. So, yeah. All right. Another thing going down, and this is why we need to get the defense to where it's at. I want y'all to check this out. Let's put in perspective what Mike McDaniel did in year one a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. And what did he do? Oh, I don't know. Just gave us the 6th best offense compared to what we've been dealing with since Adam Gase. Look at this. Are you kidding me right now? People want to complain about this guy, and he's bringing in Vic Fangio to shore up the defense. See, now if that defense would have been top 15, Boyer wouldn't be out of a job. You know what the problem is? Boyer's defense was hovering around where those offensive numbers are before Mike McDaniel, and I ain't talking about 22nd. Right? Because heading into that Bills game, the playoff game we had, we were starting to turn it around a little bit. For sure. But even still, right? We had the 24th scoring defense. We were allowing 23.47 points per game. And we were scoring 23.4 points per game. We were allowing more points to be scored than we could score. And yet, our scoring offense by the end was 11th, but under Tua, it was top 10, right? So just for an example, heading into the Packers game, the last game that Tua played this season, before the concussions or whatever, we were the 9th scoring offense, 24.7 points per game. Scoring defense, we were allowing 24.6, so they got worse as the season. So you can't allow that. Passing defense, we were 27th. We were the 23rd total defense in that Packers game. By the end of the season, we were down to 18th because they started to come on at the end of the season a little bit there, right? But for the majority of the season, we were hovering in the low to mid 20s in terms of total defense, passing defense, and scoring defense. And that's just unacceptable. I don't know what else to say. Got to do a lot better than that. You shouldn't be allowing more points than your top 10 offensive scoring. That's a big issue. And it's funny, all the people wanted to blame Tua and, didn't want to blame the defense. And Reason was telling all y'all, man, sweeping changes are coming to that defense. And you're making excuses. Well, if I was making excuses for Tua, why did the defense get flipped over the way it did? And why did they go out and get the guy that I've been telling y'all they've been trying to get for over a year? Clearly, the defense was an issue, no? So there goes the turnover. There goes the turnover. All right. And man, huge. Huge. A little interesting tidbit I wanted to show a lot of y'all, because I know we always talk about how there was a deal in place for Barry Sanders to come here in the late 90s and be paired with Dan Marino and blah, 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 blah. Well, interesting enough, check this one out. All right. So Emmitt Smith, he says he wanted to join the Dolphins to help Dan Marino win a Super Bowl, but Don Shula shot him down. Hall of Fame running back Emmitt Smith revealed to Channing Crowder, Ryan Clark, and Fred Taylor that he wanted to join the Miami Dolphins in 1993. Smith, who was a key part of the Dallas Cowboys offense, explained that he was actually a restricted free agent when he didn't show up to training camp right away in 93. In his rookie season, Smith's 4-year deal reverted to a 3-year contract, making him a restricted free agent following Dallas's Super Bowl win against the Buffalo Bills. I didn't hold out, Smith said. Holding out is when you have a contract and you want more money. My contract is over. I had fulfilled my obligations. Since he was a restricted free agent, Smith could have received offers from other teams, but the Cowboys would have been able to match if they wanted to retain him. At this point, Smith was just 3 years into the league, but he was already one of the game's best running backs. In 92, Smith ran for 1,713 yards and 18 touchdowns. Both of those marks led the NFL that season. Shockingly, Smith didn't get a single offer in restricted free agency. I got into restricted free agency, Smith said. I got 30 days to negotiate with 20-some-odd teams to come play with them, and not one gave me an offer. It's possible that Dallas team knew the Cowboys and owner Jerry Jones would have matched any offer to Smith, but it's shocking that nobody ever wanted to take a chance. Because of that, Smith, who played collegiately at the University of Florida, took matters in own hands and called then Miami's head coach Don Shula. Picked up the phone and called Don Shula myself and told him I wanted to come to Miami and play for Miami, Smith said. Because I knew Dan Marino didn't have a running game, and I said, I want to come help you, help Dan, whatever, get a championship, bring me back to the state of Florida. He said, well, I don't know if I can make that offer, because if I do make this offer and you don't come, all my other players will see what I put on the table for you. It's going to mess up my chemistry. I said, just put something on the table that Jerry says I cannot match it. He said, I can't do that. So look at how close we came to having. Emmitt Smith was reaching out to Don Shula directly and saying, put the money on the table. Put the money on the table and I'll come. And nope, we ain't putting the money on the table for you. So, I mean, and you get it. Hey, I get what Shula back then, he didn't want to break up the chemistry and et cetera, whatever. But man, Emmitt Smith, and I wasn't a huge Emmitt Smith fan, but you know, especially after, you know, I didn't like how he went after Walter Payton's record when clearly he was washed and done, and he went to Arizona because no team wanted him. That was a little much for me, but in his heyday, he was a good running back. So, man, you know, I can't get over this Renaldo Hill signing, guys. It's just like, how do you get a defensive coordinator to take a demotion and become your passing game coordinator? My Lord. Remember, Renaldo Hill was a safety for the Dolphins, guys. He played for us in 2006 to 2008. So, I think he was a defensive backs coach in 2018 too, before he went over to Denver. So he's got some history here. Man, just the fact we were able to get a legitimate defensive coordinator in this league to take a demotion is blows my mind, and it gives me even more hope. It gives me even more faith as we move forward with this staff, with this team. We are building something special in Miami. There is something special happening in South Florida. If you have not jumped on the train yet, if you've been one of those pessimists, you better hop on now, because that train going to pass you by, and we're going to be sitting there celebrating big time, and we're going to make sure all of y'all can go celebrate in the corner together at the kiddies table, right? Because this is massive what's happening in Miami right now, and we got a huge week coming up for you, man. We got a huge week. I'll be live tomorrow, and I'll be looking at 5 players the Dolphins should re-sign, cut, and let walk. So we'll be looking at that tomorrow. On Wednesday, I'll be live with Richmond and Ball Game for the finish line. On Thursday, me and Neil will do Fin Too Deep. Then Friday, guys, it's that time of the year. My top 10 free agent target video and honorable mentions. I've got 20 players, 20 targets for the Dolphins. All top 10 players will have all 22 footage attached to them. I'll tell you why they fit, why I want them. Friday is going to be a big day, so make sure you tune in. A lot of work getting put into this video. So my top 10 free agent target will be coming on Friday, and then next week we'll be dropping my first big board of the season, and we'll be doing running backs next week. So we got a lot of content coming your way just this weekend, heading into next week. Make sure to be out on the lookout for me, because I want to hear your guys' opinions on who I choose to cut, re-sign, and let walk. It's going to be a very interesting show tomorrow night. So expect me. And then again, Friday, we'll be doing top 10 free agent targets and honorable mentions. And then Wednesday, the finish line with Richmond Webb and Mr. Ballgame. And then on Thursday, Fin Too Deep. So we got a 5-day packed slate for you here on Phinside the NFL. We keeping it rolling through the offseason, and the work don't stop for y'all. We keep putting in hard work so you guys can have a good offseason on Phinside the NFL. Shout out to everyone who came out. Over 400 of you in the chat right now. Please do me the solid. Smash that like button. Please subscribe if you're new. We're only about 270 away from 11,000. Let's get to 11K. Man, I appreciate each one of you coming through and supporting. Enjoy your holiday Monday. Some of y'all might be working. Enjoy your day. Hopefully I help pass an hour of your work for you. I will see all of y'all tomorrow. So be out on the lookout for me tomorrow. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk more about all the Fangios. Tomorrow's going to be a good show. So tune in tomorrow. Check me out. Wednesday will be live. Thursday will be live. Friday will be live. Until next time, you already know what time it is. You already know. Fins up all day, every day, even beyond the grave in which we'll lay. The offseason's just getting started, baby. Just think about it. In less than a month, just a matter of weeks, tampering. In less than a month, guess what happens? Free agency. And this week, franchise tagging can start. So be on the lookout. I'll see all y'all tomorrow night. As always, love all of y'all. Fins up, baby. See y'all.